Shadow on the track. Let's get it. I'm a rock star type nigga, fucks bad bitches. See me in the drop cause I stay.
All right, everybody, welcome back to M.A.S Media. Your boys here are ready for 2021. Let's start first off by introducing ourselves. So, this is your boy, Big Mike.
And Aaron is over here. What up? What up?
And we are now heading into the illustrious 2021 season.
Oh, yes. I forgot.
So happy New Year's to all, and to all a good night. So I am happy, for one, to be able to slide right into this new year. 2020 has been one for the history books, and I believe that for all of our listeners, that 2021 will be another year for the history books. Just hopefully it's in the inverse and not in the downturn, so that way we aren't all worried about the end of the world. So I hope we are all guiding and moving towards our best selves, and fuck these New Year's resolutions. Let's just simply make day-to-day changes, and let's execute. So
Yeah. Mike, I didn't tell you before we get into it. There's going to be thousands upon thousands of new millionaires this year alone.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more people than that'll just move up in tax bracket. So why can't it be one of us?
I love it. I absolutely fucking love it.
Let's do it. 2021. I'm ready to kick ass.
Absolutely love it. Love what you do and make what you do your best and only path to success. Now, as we mentioned, this is our opening up of the 2021 year with this new podcast episode, and I wanted to get into something that was just a little bit, a little bit controversial, so to speak. I mean, it's something that has been sort of echoed throughout the tales of time. I mean, our history books, as far as quote unquote Black history, has talked about this battle, and simply this word. I mean, the notion of blackness has been something that's discussed in many forums throughout our community. And I for one, as well as my co-host, if I can speak for him, have sort of battled with it personally, as far as, trying to understand, where the mentality, as well as the sort of the method behind the madness of, categorizing and placing ourselves into something that is essentially fictional and non-factual, because as we all know, there's no such thing as the skin tone black. And also there's no such thing as a skin tone. For the necessary point of making, there's no such thing as a yellow skin tone, or unless you have jaundice. Unless a lot of people are walking around with jaundice in the Asian community, which I highly doubt. Much to say about COVID-19. Oops. So if we throw that out there, it just kind of lends one to believe that essentially the backbone of our society has been placed on something that has essentially no merit, yet it kind of trickles through every fabric of our beings, as far as what we talk about, who we talk to, where we go, what we do, how we dress, how we talk, how we walk, all these different things. And so I wanted to take the time, and my co-host was brilliant enough to bring up this as a podcast topic. I wanted to kind of dive into the meaning of blackness. What does that entail, right? So I'll leave that to you, Aaron, to sort of kick us off, as far as what does it mean to you to be Black?
All right. Well, obviously, as many of the listeners know, Black is not a term that I subscribe to. Now, obviously, that wasn't always the case. Growing up, that was just what it was. It was accepted. Everyone. It was just what I'm black, you're white, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to answer that question in two parts.
Right.
So, prior to me, gaining knowledge and having a whole different perspective on everything. Prior, yes, what black meant to me then. What I thought it meant was, pride in who you are, uh, and having a darker hue. Whether you were like, I'm not dark. There's people that are darker than me,
Right.
but we would all be still considered black, and there's people that are lighter than me that would be considered black. So that was kind of like our unifying banner, if you will.
Right.
And that's what it meant to me then. A lot of pride, well, but now black to me is, it's a color.
Mm-hmm.
It's a color that is used to label, I'm not even sure if I can say ethnic group. It's a color used to label various ethnic groups across the globe.
Right.
And there's no unification in that color, because it's nothing more than the color. And what I had believed up until not recently, but yeah, relatively recently, it has been just a whole big farce. There is no pride in the color, because if I were to say there's black pride, then what about all the other colors of the rainbow? Here comes the LGBTQ community. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Awesome.
what blue? What about orange? What about the pride for all the other colors? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's a color. And I don't want to go too deep into it to start, but yeah, so that's what it meant to me then. Now, what black means to me now is a color. My laptop is black. The shirt I'm wearing right now is black. My skin color is not black. I'm not black. Black is a color.
So, I believe I'm right there with you. I mean, when I was younger, sort of younger in high school and things like that, um, I sort of used the term black, very loosely, and honestly, I attribute it to how we were taught in school, about quote unquote black history, sort of, and I mean, I do give credit to, I'll give a shout out to our history teacher, Mr. Scott Williams, um, because he was probably one of the only individuals that I know that sort of did not sugarcoat. Um, I mean, he knew that it was obviously our school was going to advertise Black History Month, right? You would see the little decorations all over, um, once February came and whatnot, but he didn't kind of, pussyfoot around it, right? For lack of a better term, like he went balls deep, no homo, into sort of
Mm-mm.
showing us, sorry, he went, he went very in depth into showing us roots and things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. And honestly, I don't know many teachers in that class. I mean, in history teachers, if you look back at the ones that were in, that taught alongside him in that grade, that would actually go about showing roots, and roots was no joke. Like that was my introduction to holy shit. I knew slavery was obviously real, and I knew slavery was an issue, but to see the societal, the psychological sort of, the breakdown that slavery ensued on those that were afflicted during that time, it sort of made me sit back and say, whoa, this is the people that the African, I guess I'll use this term just for the sake of conversation, the African American, um, in my eyes, or the black people from America, have been subjected, especially their ancestors, have gone through some shit. You know what I'm saying? Because in Nigeria, yeah, we had our atrocities, most notably the Biafran War and whatnot, where there was millions lost due to genocide. But at the same token, it was nothing in comparison to 400 years, essentially, of distraught and terrorism. So when I talk about being black, when I talk about what it means to be black, I went through a journey in college where I started getting more and more involved in sort of in, let's say, into the Black Student Union. That's essentially what it was called, where I was the vice president of the Brothers Making a Difference. And in that, I actually was, I was, it was my responsibility alongside my cabinet members to bring notice to the Black community at our campus and sort of the afflictions of the community, not only in our township that where the school was, our college was located, but also in the national forum. And as I left college and I started looking back at that experience, I had to think to myself, like, did we drop the ball? Like, did we focus on really the right issues that are plaguing the community at hand, or did we simply placate to societal notions that like, for instance, police brutality, and some of these other, I don't want to say non-important issues, but sort of lesser when we're looking at the totem pole of afflictions that are plaguing the quote unquote Black community on a day by day basis, so that's made me reflect on it. So when I think about what it means to be Black then versus now when I see Black, after watching The Race Ways of Seeing, which I would really advise people to watch. It's a PBS documentary. I had to watch it in college, and it was called Racism: The Power of Illusion. And in this documentary, they break down the full history and spectrum of where racism really started from, how science was utilized to project and to continue the notion of inferiority between the races. And you start to watch as we talk, like, we literally did all of this based on something that has, again, no merit in our society. But we allowed this to happen because those that controlled the airways and controlled the academia at the time, and most of them were of the Caucasian nature. They were first up, because I guarantee you, if those of a color were able to, I'm pretty sure Caucasians would have had a rougher go about it. So it's kind of like a race to the finish, so to speak. So, which is insane to think about, right? Like, if it's just a matter of where society breaks out, because it didn't break out necessarily in the African Sahara. Well, I mean, obviously there's tons of history within there, but because it didn't over the years extend past that time of superiority. Now look at it, right? It's like the beholder is the one that sits in power, right? Essentially at the end, right? That's who's able to tailor history. So that would be my explanation on what being Black is.
No, I mean, that's true. The one in power definitely gets to write his story. I know a lot of people have heard that before, the whole history, his story, but it's true. I mean, just very briefly, the whole narrative about slavery is just so, like, it's so wrong, and there's a whole bunch of misinformation and disinformation being perpetuated to people, and most people don't know any better, and they just take it for face value and say, well, this is what I believe, I've grown up to believe, so I'm just going to go and continue to believe it. But no, for instance, people from Africa had already been to South America, the Americas, far before Columbus went. And prior to the slave trade popping off, Europe was freaking, they were about to be dead, all of them. The financial system was crashing, and they were all dying from illness and disease.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, the slave trade is really what got them all popping. That's why all those European countries were able to make so much money, because they were able to make that money for free. They didn't have to pay any overhead. I mean, well, virtually no overhead. You didn't have your labor force was free.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to go too deep into that, because we could save that for episodes in the later date. And obviously, Black History Month right over the horizon. So, but anyway, back to what you were saying about, your perspective changes from then and now. So now let's go into the history of it. Obviously, Black is what we call it, and obviously I use that loosely. I'm speaking of a broad, us in a broader term. That's what we use to call ourselves, but that's not what we were always calling ourselves, and that's not what we were always called or accepted to be called.
Right.
Obviously, it started out you know, with being called colored. What would you do if someone called you colored, Mike, today?
Lord have mercy. I have no idea, man. There would honestly be a state of shock, you know, if I was to be called colored. I would just be like, I mean, obviously, I'd be really, you know, intrigued as to where that person came from. You know, like, because if you're just gonna come on, he was like, yeah, no, yeah, Mike, guys, this is Mike. This is my colored friend from Rev. Like, well, I'd be like, whoa, huh? I'm like, I'm sorry, okay? ¿Qué pasa? You know, like, well, what's up with you? Like, that would be, yeah. I'd be like, hold up, man. Well, we didn't talk about this. Like, this is not how you're supposed to. Like, what am I supposed to call you? My cracker friend or cracker barrel?
Nah. What if you? Now, what if you're talking to a girl, right? And then she takes you to, like, her family house, whatever, and then the grandma there, and then the grandma's like, "Oh, that's the colored boy you was talking about."
Oh, hell no. Granny's got to get swung on at some point. No. I mean, no, there's no, I don't want no domestic violence in here. But at the same time, you know, somebody's got to get it. So it's you know, most likely it's going to be the girl or whoever brought me, you know, to that family function. You know, there's going to be some furniture moving. That's all I'm going to say. You know, some real quick furniture moving.
Furniture moving? Yeah. What about cheese clap? No cheese getting clapped, just furniture?
Yeah, somebody, I mean, that could happen too. That would be an end result as to me, you know, espousing my anger, you know, so I would essentially, you know, clap those cheeks for my ancestors, you know, so that would be, you know what I'm saying? Because you just got to do it like that sometimes. What they say, you know, what, you know, what was that famous, that funny ass quote? He was like, we're just trying to, you know, because that's how essentially, oh, this is going to sound terrible. But for all the girls that I dated that were Caucasian in high school, but essentially, I mean, I was going off of the comedic line of the century where it was like, you know, we're just trying to do to them, you know, do to these women what's been happening to us for the last 400 years. Fuck them.
You're terrible. You're terrible. You're terrible. Like,
we're just trying to fuck them. Some point. Okay. So, anywho, if anybody seems to come on here, you know, please, those views have changed steadily throughout time. So, I expect you to at least give me a buffer before you cancel culture me. But yeah. So that would be my reaction. I mean, I'm curious. What would you say? Because you do hang out with a lot more Caucasian people than I do. You know,
well, I don't really, you know. Yes, but for our listeners,
it's obviously it's a nature of where we're from. I mean, we're from a very diverse region in Jersey,
and not only that, I'm married into a Caucasian family.
That is true. Yes,
I have in-laws who are Caucasian, so you know, just off that alone, I associate with more quote unquote Caucasians than maybe your average, but it is what it is.
Right, no, it's different strokes, different folks.
But to answer your question, if one of these motherfuckers to ever come out their mouth to me, nah. You know, but this goes back to the season finale of season 1. You know, with the N-word. I think people know who to try shit around.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
That is very true.
I don't give off try me vibes. Excuse my language, but I don't give that off. You know, right. Especially when it comes to things like that. You know, don't get me wrong. I laugh and I like to have a good time, and I'll make silly jokes, and I can come across as, you know, childish.
Correct.
Not childish, but like playful is I think a better word. But when it comes to things of a more serious nature, I'm very stern when it comes to that. So
I agree.
I think that people know not to even try it. Like, oh, like say I'm at a party, right? And we're singing a song. Now, obviously, you know, we already did this too. You know, quote unquote is pop culture. So if a song's on and it's a quote unquote black song, and you know the N-word is definitely prevalent in that motherfucker.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I cannot tell you a time when I've been around someone and they just let that shit fucking fly. You know, and I'm not saying that to say like, oh yeah, I have these motherfuckers whipped. It's not even like that. It's more or less, I think, out of respect, they just don't even try to even go that route. Right. Not like I said, oh, money, I better drop. You know what I'm saying? I don't have time to to be the fucking N-word police, and I said that very clear in that episode. Right. You know, so I don't find myself in that situation. Is to answer your question. You know. How about you?
No, I mean, and I would have to, concede as well. I mean, that's essentially where that's why I said there would be like a sense of shock, right? If somebody was to say colored, Negro, any of those, right? Because I don't
Mhm.
either give off that sort of, play with me vibe when it comes to things of that nature, and if it is, right, I mean, I know our friends do it to be, to be funny, but I mean, you've seen it, like when I'm like, when I'm addressed in a certain way, like I'm very clear, like, hey, look, that's fine if you want to address someone else in that fashion, but I suggest you be very careful about, talking to me in that way, because again, like this is something that I can't, and you've mentioned this, just before, about how, we can't go around policing, words like this, because there's so many people through hip hop and through all these other different forums that are just allowing that word to just splurge around anyway, right? So who am
Mhm.
I to be the beacon of of PC when it comes to that word, So, but what all I
Yeah.
can do is control how it's being addressed in my direction. So it's
Mhm.
one of those things where it's like I haven't had someone either who has, especially someone of a Caucasian variety, who's ever felt the comfortability to, I don't care how long they've quote unquote known me for, but to fix their lips and be able to say anything, even if it is in a joking fashion, to talk that way.
Okay. Can all right, this is a great point. So I'm gonna keep on digging if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely.
So obviously, it was started with color,
Hmm.
and then there was a transition to the word Negro, and I believe that was around the time of what's his man's name? The Booker T. Washington. I had to think about the wrestler for a
The
minute. Yes, not the wrestler obviously, but he took his name from Booker T. Washington. If you guys don't know who Booker T. Washington is, do your research, look it up. And again, that's another reason why I have a huge problem with African American History Month or Black History Month, because more people should know about names like that as well.
Absolutely.
So anyway, it went from color to Negro. Booker T. Washington was one of the main people to change it, because it was like, colored had like a bad negative connotation
Absolutely.
around it. So they were like, Negro is more like civilized and
Hmm.
distinguished. And so, with that being the case, obviously we know Negro has transformed to black.
Yes.
And I say that to say this. With that all in context, those words, for lack of better terms, are synonymous, are they not?
I mean, I would think so, because honestly, I don't even, when I see all three of them, I wouldn't ever use any of them to describe myself. Um, in any way in those fashions, right? I would never be like, oh, I'm the Negro, I'm that Negro, you know what I mean? Or if I'm that black guy, or oh, I'm that color. You see what I'm saying? Like when you throw those, like insert any one of those, so it's kind of funny to me how, I don't say funny, but I think that point you bring up about Booker T. Washington and the collection of the Negroes, essentially, right? The coalition, the Negro coalition that he, as well as W.E. Du Bois and other notable figures in African American history. When they brought that coalition together to sort of talk about the plagues of the plight of the Negro, right? I mean, yes, I think it's kind of interesting to me how they had to figure out ways to get back some semblance of respect for themselves, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
essentially it was
Mm-hmm.
being dictated to by those again who were seeking to create more inferiority complex between the masses, and I think that's something that sort of that's given me cause to pause, when I look at these terms, because now look, I mean, they when you go to the censuses or you go to a job application, the first thing you'll see is black/African American, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what kind of description is that? I mean, and if they want to
Exactly.
get fancy, they'll be like, oh, black/Pacific Island, Pacific
Mm-hmm.
Islander, black/ this. I'm like, well, what the fuck? I'm like, hey, like this. Y'all are again they're and they'll these people, right? These employers, the national, sorry, the government basis or platforms that dictate those types of laws that get put into place as far as how job sites can sort of uh, can discern and create those buckets, it's like you're still missing the point. You're still dropping the ball. You know, it doesn't make sense as to how do you like you're still taking away sense of self, because now when I look at a job, when I look at an employer site and I see that, it's like I'm like stuck between a rock and a hard place, because it's like I know if I put Black African American, they're gonna stick out and go, okay, well, for the sake of hitting our quotas, maybe I'm gonna maybe pay attention to this profile, but for my sense of dignity, I don't want to output other, right? And I'll put, don't, I wish not, excuse me, I wish not to, or testify or to identify.
Specify.
Sorry, specify or identify myself as such, right? I don't want to do any of that, right? Because that's not me. That's not what I am. I know I know what my background is, and none of them are in that description. So
let me ask you a question.
No, I was
sorry. So now that we've established the history of those three words, and obviously we live in a time now where the term Black is used on a daily basis. It's used right now. Someone somewhere saying right now, I'm Black and I'm proud. I guarantee it. You know what I'm saying? Someone somewhere.
I mean, proud. I remember Black, proud. I'm Black and I'm proud, and I got it going on. Remember that?
Well, the Proud Family, that was a great damn TV show, and I'm happy you brought. I might have to watch that, stream that in the near future.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Where's the Kelly, y'all? Yeah, I'm dead. Yeah. Oh, where'd that come from?
Yeah. So that everything in life.
And the thing, but you acting like a fool, and that's everything that you do. Oh no, I'm dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, no.
I'm definitely a trip down
that. Man, I gotta figure out a place where I can get that. All that. I want all the episodes.
Family, y'all. If anyone who's interested in Proud Family, if y'all know what that's about, we're gonna drop a bomb right here.
Cool bomb for it.
All right. So now we've established a timeline in history, and we know now that people are throwing the word Black, around. So if it's anonymous, just switch that word out.
Yep.
Today people say, "Oh, I'm Black." I'm Black. I'm Black and I'm proud. Oh, I'm colored. I'm colored.
Yeah.
I'm a strong color. If someone were to say it now, it would sound crazy, wouldn't it? Oh, I'm a Negro. I'm a Negro power. Wouldn't it just sound crazy?
It'd be cringy. It'd be cringeworthy.
But then what difference does Black come across? Now we already know how I feel about y'all already know how we feel about, not even feel, what we think about subscribing to the word Black as like a title or any kind of something that you can cling to. But so y'all already know where we are on that. So I'm asking this question pretty much to y'all. Y'all the ones that call each other Black. Y'all say, "Oh, these niggas are stupid." Yeah, fuck y'all niggas. Y'all Black. Y'all Black. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So if I came out and started calling you colored, you know what I'm saying? Or a person started calling you colored, because if you tell a white person to call you Black, then why he can't just say, "You know what? I'd rather call you Negro." You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's anonymous. So what's different? What made it like why? Where do we draw the lines? Are we drawing lines, or does it just have to come up and then you want to get all in your feelings and hurt? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure people would feel some type of way.
No, I agree. Like, I think they definitely would. And you know what it is? I think now that you speak on this, I believe there's a sense of sensationalism, right, behind each one of these words, which is why you wouldn't see someone be so happy for a Caucasian to step out their mouth and be like, "Oh," you're like, "Oh, well, y'all Negroes over there, every time there's an issue, you guys want to make it about race." There's just a reason. Like, people will pick and choose when they want to be offended, right? It's the same thing with the word bitch, right? Like, and not obviously to that degree, right? Because obviously there's way more connotation behind it. But you know what I'm talking about. Like, when women talk to each other, like, "Oh yeah, but yes, bitch, yes, bitch, go ahead, slay, bitch." But then let some other woman, that they don't know, right, come in and call them bitch. Now it's it's World War III. It's like, "Oh, excuse me," and they won't even they don't even have to be saying in the battle, like, "Damn, bitch, you look good." They're like, "Excuse you? Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to, bitch?" Like, and they will literally call her It'll just the word will just get thrown around all willy nilly, and that word wasn't even utilized in a negative fashion. Like the girl could have easily just been like, "Damn, bitch, you look good in that outfit," and they're just like, who the hell is this bitch? Who the fuck you talking to? Do I know you?"
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, like it's for me, it's like it's maddening, right? So I think one of our points is like, this madness that surrounds these words of sort of fictionalized sort of merit, black, colored, Negro, these are all vices that are utilized by the powers that may be, right? The people that are, and I'm not even necessarily talking about the government. I'm talking about people that would wish for us to continue to segregate, not mostly ourselves, but to segregate our woes and our issues, right? Because when you look at it at surface value, which is why when you really sit down and talk to a KKK person, and you get to the crux of what their issues are with people of different colors and backgrounds, it's like, yo, we going through the same shit. Like and it's deeper than that, y'all. Like, so it's like, at what point do we start to say, start to intellectualize ourselves to look past, this black guy? Like, why not take a more, intellectual stance and say, and figure out who this person is before you talk to them? And just bucketing people in such a lazy way, because that's all I've like. I know we've talked about this in nauseum. It's just like, don't you feel lazy? And I'm speaking to our listeners, like, don't you feel like lazy when you just go, yeah, no, I'm not sure, I don't remember his name, but it was some black guy from down the street. He was like, what fuck am I supposed to do with that? Like, or this. I'm not, most obviously people don't speak like, oh, the Negro from around the corner. They don't talk like that anymore. But even back then, right? Like, at what point do we start caring about, really getting to know people to a certain extent, right? Because I'm not saying you have to know every person you just walk past, right? But as far as describing and talking about the fellow human being, why does it always have to come back to these color connotations, right? That are uncontrollable.
Well, the answer. The answer is obviously the social construct, that was created. So that, but and that's what I talk about also on my YouTube videos that I do, and we spoke about this on here too. We have to. It's very simple, y'all. If you're gonna play the game, you have to know the rules of the game. Period. And if you don't have to play the game, you could obviously like unplug from the matrix, or you could live like a semi-plugged, semi-unplugged kind of life where you're kind of in and kind of out. You just know what to do. But if you're going to play the game, you have to play by the rules. So when I hear people say, oh, man, well, they didn't have to kill that brother like that. They didn't have to shoot that brother like that. Oh, white people, they just walk around. They don't get shot. Listen, but if you know the rules of the game, you shouldn't be shot. Am I saying that is right? No. I'm telling you that this is how the game goes. So if you want to win or lose, or just you want to advance, know the rules, know how it applies to you, and be able to work around it. Have the ability to discern what the hell's going on around you, and be able to adapt and make the best moves for you and your family. And I don't want to go too deep into that but anyway, remember a couple years ago, Tiger Woods got into a lot of heat when he was like, "Oh, I'm not black," then the whole black community was like, "Oh, what do you mean not black?"
Oh my God.
And then I'm a Coblin Asian.
Oh my God.
And it was like, what? What? But I bring this up now to say I was one of them back in the day when that happened. I don't remember how old I was, but I was young. I was certainly young back when that happened. I was like, what the fuck is this nigga talking about?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like nigga, you want us. You know what I'm saying? Don't be trying. But now I get it. Just because he says that, it doesn't inherently mean that he's trying to separate himself from us. He could be trying to do that. I can't speak on behalf of that motherfucker. You have to talk to Tiger Woods. You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying inherently in him saying to you, oh, I don't choose to identify as black. If you're going to call me anything along those lines, call me Coblin Asian, which is a mixture of everything that I am. And I can respect that. Not even so much as a man, just as a human being. And I don't like to speak on that human being level too often, because we live in a world where that shit doesn't mean anything apparently. And so I'm being serious. So, but just as a human being, all right, it's better than saying, fuck that. I'm black, y'all. I'm blackity black, and I'm blackity blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is Tiger Woods on what? I'm black.
What the fuck is wrong? Yeah, you're fucking stupid. Oh my god.
Serious, bro.
No.
So
yeah, I can't, man. Yeah.
All right, so there's this Bible verse that I'm going to put together with that and kind of where we're going with this. And Paul said it, and it helps people understand, because I'm sure there's people out there that are like, okay, I get what you guys are saying about the then and the now. And this Bible verse sums it up a lot. Okay, it's Paul said it. I forget who he was talking to, but he said, "When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." I'm saying, oh, I'm black, this and that, and Tiger Woods, oh, you black nigga, shut up, sit down. Like many of you are doing now, and you may not be quote unquote children, you may be adults. This doesn't just pertain to physically if you're a child or an adult. This is mental, because you could be an adult, but you could mentally still be a child. Once you have that awakening and that great change of perspective to adulthood, then you can finally look back and say, aha, like in Coming to America. Aha.
Yeah. Aha. No, and I mean, hopefully I'm not cutting you off from your point.
No.
No, and I think that's a really fair assessment, and also used and very nicely used sort of segue of the Bible in there. And I think, and I would have to agree. Like, this is something that, and we've spoken about when it comes to the idea of men and women. There are a lot of men and women that are running around, who presume and are saying that they are men and women, but in all actuality, they're, simply little boys and little girls, in mentality and how they move. And it's the same thing can be attributed, as you mentioned, when it comes to adulthood. And I think that, with the Tiger Woods situation, Lord have mercy, nothing good about that, man. With the Tiger Woods situation, I very vaguely remember that whole scenario. And I also remember being like, initially going, the fuck? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, are you serious, bro? Like, if you get stopped in the store, yeah, we might think you got a little twang in you, but yeah, you black, man. Like, you're black, bro. Like, I've seen your father, man. Like, he looked like one of the Jacksons. Like, you black, man. I'm like, come on now. But he's got the woolly, dry hair, like the rest of us. But, sorry, mine is luxurious. I can't even say that. But, this is something that, I'm sorry. So when I look at that situation now, I can't help but agree with you that, when I hear those words spoken now, I have to have a pause and go, you know what? Technically, he's right. He's not black, right? He's refusing to segue and to bucket himself in a sort of a slap in the face metric to his ancestors, right? And I think that's something now, like, I can look back. I think, when I think even I could still have an issue with his delivery on that notion, simply only for the fact that, as rightfully you mentioned, Aaron, you have to know the rules to the game, right? And I think by him, doing it in a time where we know what saying it in that fashion, right? In the way that he, like, just so, just essentially just threw that out there, right? Without, it's just, so carelessly, right? Knowing how big of a figure he is, that is the only time I would say, it just a little done in a different way. Knowing because there's going to be kids that come up that are looking at this guy. And I'm not saying he's advocating himself as, because he mentioned it. He doesn't look at himself as to be a sort of a beacon of a sort of a figure, right? Where he's going out there in an inspirational figure, so to speak, right? He's just living his life, essentially, and that's like the Charles Barkley notion that he's not an idol, or what was it, like a there you go, like a role model, so to speak, right? And you shouldn't be cascaded. But essentially, this guy has such a huge plight in that sport speaking like that so loosely with somebody who's been in the cameras for so long at that point in his career, it's just like, come on, man, you could do better than just saying it like that. Right. That would have been my only thing. But outside of that, no, on its face value, he was absolutely right. And I think that's the beauty of growing up, because we went from having an emotional reaction to sort of having essentially taking a step back as we get older and going and having a more, diligent and sort of laid back approach, and to go, you know what, he's not really tripping all that much if you really think about, what he's trying to convey.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's the beauty, brother. Like, even when you go on Facebook, it shows you your memories, and I see some of the posts I'm like, what the hell? But you know what? I find peace in knowing that even Paul, like I said, he said, when I was a child, I said childish things, and but now there's a transition, so I don't have to have any shame in that. I was a child, and if you want to, cast judgment upon that, so be it. But that's not who I am today.
No, and that's important. I think that's paramount to sort of where we're trying to go with this, right? Because to kind of segue, I mean, it's, so we've talked about the what it is, right? We've talked about where, the state of blackness, so to speak, in our society. We've talked about it not even on just this episode, but we've sort of mentioned the state of the sort of state of union affairs, or state of affairs, when it comes to those in this community. So, but when we, so to bring it all about, but I remember a quote from a Morgan Freeman interview where he spoke on the state of racism in America. And obviously we know Morgan Freeman has, I mean, Laura, I feel like he's been the same age for like all my life. I don't really know. I feel like he's 100 years old, but he looks like he's been 70 forever, and so when I think about his notion that, about racism, he simply says that we should just stop talking about it, and this is something that, when I look at that quote, right, when I look at that interview in its totality, right, it's something that sort of jogs me and says, yes, can it be deemed a little bit irresponsible at face value? Because it is something that we essentially do have to pay attention to, because knowing the rules of the game, it is something that's there. But essentially, why do we have to continue to sort of continue non-productive conversations based upon, again, a skin tone? Right?
Yeah. So
right.
I definitely like to tackle that, because people ask me pretty often, actually, they misconstrued when I speak about, when I say, like police brutality is an issue, but if you move with a purpose and, you're not, you're just idle, you're not going to, it's not going to affect you, pretty much. People misconstrue that for saying like, oh, well, if you try to ignore it. And no, it's not about ignoring it. So when he said that, when Mr. Freeman said that, I did not agree with that, because I think that it can endanger the lives of people if they just go with that, take that and just run with it. And I think that's very dangerous. Like I said, there is a game, for lack of better terms, and whether you choose to play it or not, the shit's still fucking going. Even if you choose not to play, you have to be aware that there's a game going on. So, for instance, if there's a football game going on, and I say, you know what, I choose to I don't care if they play in the game, and I choose to walk through the fucking field, and I get fucking, I run the fuck over and stepped on with cleats, then yes, that can happen. But if I say, hey, there's a game going on, and I don't want to play in the game, I'm going to walk around the track. Yeah, it might take me longer to get to where I want to go, but, I have a purpose and have a destination in mind. I'm not going to subject myself to any negative outcomes, at least, foreseeable negative outcomes. Yeah, Mr. Freeman, when he said that, just stop talking about it. No, you have to talk about it to a degree. You can't act like it doesn't exist, because it does exist. When I say move with a purpose, like, for instance, I talk about race because, we talk about race. We have a podcast. We speak on almost a weekly basis, and we talk about race. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about things that can better help position the quote unquote black community. So yes, I do speak about race, but I don't speak about it in a way that's deleterious to the community that you'll see other people do, like Mr. Roland Martin. When he talks about race, it's all this fear mongering. I have people in my on Facebook and they talk about race. It's fear mongering, like, oh, you better watch out, yada yada. And it's like, no, like that type of race talk isn't helping anybody. So if you're gonna talk about it, you need to talk about it from the point of view of, hey, this is what's going on, and this is how we avoid some stupid shit, like Mr. Jacob Blake, but he got himself with some stupid shit that had to do with race. He could have been the white man, a quote unquote white man, and found himself in that position. Listen, he could have been exactly who he was. I would have shot the nigga. You know what I'm saying? I would have shot him. And I'm pretty sure I said that on the podcast that we did about it. I would have shot him. And I'm not sure if I would have shot him 7 times. I might have shot him 10 times. Who knows how many bullets was in the clip? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But he would have got blasted. Is that about race? No, but when people choose to have those conversations about stuff like that and try to attribute it to race, that doesn't help anyone. And I'm not sitting here saying that we need to, focus on the optics about how we look to other races. It's not about that. It's about how we look to ourselves. Now, that's what we're talking about when we have bigger issues.
I think I can understand where you're coming from when it comes to his quote. I mean, and also to do justice to the interview. I mean, essentially, the interviewer asked him a really broad question. Just how do you stop racism? And that was just his. How Morgan Freeman is. He's just a very matter of fact. I mean, as far as if you watched him do interviews and speak on topics, he's just a very matter of fact type of person. So when I watched the interview and he says just stop talking about it, it's just a very plain way of of if you're going to ask me a plain question, I'm going to give you a plain answer, because it's like what do you like? You're expecting me, an actor, right, to be able to give you a whole rendition of how you tackle 400 years plus, right, of afflictions, right, all within just one question. Right. So essentially, I do think there is truth to the just stop talking about it. But also, I think there's truth to your comment about, and I love your analogy about the game. Right. Because essentially, if enough people start that are watching this football game, which the football game, I presume, is the battle of race. Right. In our community. I'm sorry, in our country and in the world. Enough people take that lap around the track. There's just going to be enough people that go, oh well, the people that are playing football are going to be like, wow, nobody's watching us. Nobody. I mean, and if there are people watching, it's like it's the people, the derelicts that really don't have any basis or don't impact society at all whatsoever. Right? It's just a small little fraction of people, which essentially that's what it is. A lot of the people think that racism is just all over. It's spread all around the. It's like there's skinheads all over the place, right? And it's just like, when you really look at all the people that are really walking around that track because they don't feel like watching the game anymore, it's like there's really not a lot of people in the stands if you really think about it. So I think that's where we get to that point of the game, right? Because essentially, and that's why I like this analogy so much. It's just the people that are playing football with each other are going to go, oh man, who are we really doing this for? You know what I'm saying? And like, where are we getting with this? Like, we're just like, this game has gone on for so long. There's supposed to be 4 quarters. We've been playing 5 games in the field, back to back to back, and I'm getting fucked up. This guy broke his leg. This guy's, in a stretcher. We're losing players by the mass fold, right? And we keep getting players coming on the field, getting fucked up for nothing, right? Essentially, we're just getting it for the people that are drinking Coronas or drinking, natural ice and sitting on the side, cursing and throwing shit at us the whole time. You know what I mean? Like, who are we really doing this for? So I think that's a really powerful way of looking at, the battle of racism essentially in our society, and how we can move towards. I'm not going to say eradicating, because those people in the stands that are those derelicts are always going to be there because they just got nothing else better to do, right? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah. But the racism, what most people think of when you say racism, what I've noticed is that the majority of it, when people speak about it, is between
Mm-hmm.
trash,
Yep.
white trash and black trash. You know what I'm saying? Now, the real quote unquote racism that no one really talks about is the
Right.
systematic racism. But I don't even call it that because obviously, like, I don't subscribe to being called black. I don't subscribe to racism because I know racism it was a created construct, and I know what it was created for. And again, I don't agree with that, and I don't go by that. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say like there's not a game going on with it. No, I'm fully aware of that. But to answer the question, how do you defeat racism? You don't, because first of all, racism does not exist because race does not exist. The different seed lines. We're human beings and we come from different seed lines. Like you and I have different fathers, Mike, right? But if you follow the seed line, I'm sure our fathers may be closer than a Caucasian person to our father. You know what I'm saying? Or there's a possibility that that Caucasian person has a lot of quote unquote black in him and he just looks super white. But if you follow that shit back, he might be motherfucking black. You know what I'm saying? He might not. You don't know. And that's a point that I say to people all the time about what do you think about reparations? I think if we were ever to do reparations, a lot of people will be mad when they see a lot of white people getting money. Like, why? Well, DNA says that he's black. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyway, back to what I was just saying. When you can't defeat racism because it doesn't exist to begin with. So I don't get into that fruitless fucking battle of how am I going to defeat racism. When I talk to you, Mike, about what I'm trying to do, I never say my goal is to defeat racism and then create equality, because those are things that do not exist. Right. Equality doesnn't exist. Men and women aren't equal. We complement each other. There's things that are complementary, but there's nothing in this world that are equal. Birds aren't even equal. Right. Turkeys aren't equal to chickens. You know what I'm saying? So we can't get caught up in all this useless, rhetoric that's much ado about nothing. So instead, what I try to do is just try to figure out ways to make our lives better. So, Morgan Freeman, I'm not sure if he knew that question was coming up. He answered to the best of his ability, and he gave a pretty, like you said, plain answer. And nothing against that, but just so people that were asking me, don't get it twisted. I'm not sitting here saying that, just don't believe in it and it'll go away. You know what I'm saying? No, don't please don't ever do that. It could be dangerous. It could cost you your life. So definitely don't do that. But let's segue into light versus dark skin.
Boy. Now we've gone through the sort of inception of the word black. Right, we've gone into it at lengths. Now we are at the battle of the centuries, I should say, right? Where we're talking about light versus dark skin men and women, right? So where does this animosity, right? Because there is a ton of animosity. It may be jokingly, it may be, in some cases it even may be violent, right? Or it may be, and so to speak, it may be insidious, right? Where does it stem from? Where do you see it stemming from?
So what I've read and on doing my own research, and at one point in time I did believe to be true, was the Willie Lynch letter. If you haven't read it, definitely read it. It's literally a very small book, damn near like a pamphlet, I would call it. It's not really a book. It's literally a letter that they just put into a book form for the most part. And it's definitely a good book to read for what it is, but it's fiction. So anyway, if you don't know what it is, very briefly, it's a book that this man Willie Lynch wrote. He was a slave owner and had plantations in the Caribbean. Now, supposedly, in the Americas, because obviously the slaves arrived in the Caribbean first, in South America first, and then they arrived over in North America, which is now America, afterwards. So he had already established his, plantation and had it running smoothly, like a factory. So these Southerners, Southern plantation owners, wrote out to this guy asking, like, hey, we heard what you're doing down there, and we trying to, get that over here. he wrote a letter, and he just pretty much outlined all the things that you hear today about, oh, you know, I separated them by like light skin, dark skin, and I made them have animosity towards each other. Pretty much all he says is that he broke down, you know, he broke us all down. He put the men against the women, put like the young men versus the old men, and the different things. Now, obviously, like people took that when it came out, and they took it as gospel, but obviously it wasn't true. That wasn't the case. Like, for instance, in the movie Django, which I'm sure most people have seen that movie, Leonardo DiCaprio, who's probably one of the most popular memes right now for portrayal of that slave owner in Django, his right hand man, his slave, was not light skinned, which the Willie Lynch letter would lead you to believe that the house nigga was always light skinned and had the fairest complexion. And that movie did a very accurate job on not just casting a light skinned person in that role, because that wasn't that's not factually correct. It's not correct. It's historically correct. Now, is it like, were there some house niggas that was light skinned? Yes, but that wasn't the end all be all. It was just more circumstantial. Like the Willie Lynch letter, that was just it's a work of fiction.
So what I would say, and to add into this, into that, especially because that was an awesome movie, and thank you for that breakdown, because I think that's really going to help our listeners, hopefully do their research on Willie Lynch and sort of, and they'll maybe understand, where some of these curse words they utilize, like motherfuckers and all this other stuff, really comes from, essentially because there was actual truth behind, the term, right? And it's now when you look at it, it's like, Lord, okay, it's kind of a rough one, and to even think that a lot of, different families that are out here are spread around and have been sort of literally built by way of the methods of Willie Lynch and those who utilize his methods, is sort of, it's kind of, it's very disheartening, and also it's also scary as shit to even really think about, but as far as, where that comes in, especially that character from Django, I think I think why it was so powerful is because it's not just the sort of the house Negro that has to be, light skin. It's an embodiment of that personality, right? It's an embodiment of that quote unquote power structure, right? And saying, you know what, like, I may not be the lightest one in the tree or lightest one in the lightest shade in the fence, right? But at the same token, you know what? If I can gravitate myself to the man, right, the man that's in said power, I can basically be able to get the highlights or scrap the crumbs that nobody else in the house, that sits outside and sleeps on the plantation floor, on the grass and the ground and the dirt, they won't be able to lend themselves to achieve, right? So it's just like clawing up to that eventual seat of power that you just won't be able to ever really achieve, because essentially the man in power puts you there for that reason, right? So that way you can then monitor, you can then infiltrate and chastise and also disintegrate those that are seated below you in that power structure, So I think that's where even my mindset on the light versus dark skin battle is coming from, because normally when I used to think about it, it was like, oh, you light skin, so any light skinned person is always going to try to play like they're, a Caucasian person when the time is right, they're always going to do it. And when I looked at it, I'm like, man, I've seen all different types of people that in all shades that have tried to sort of, move themselves from their ancestry simply because it doesn't, meet their, meet where they want to, it doesn't take them where they want to go in life, and essentially, move towards something that's a little bit more, like, I don't say attainable, but that's more palatable, right? Which is the proposed, white sense of power, right? So when I think about it, this battle, I think it's kind of funny. Like, we have our boy Mark, that we always fuck around with, right? And we're always going back and forth about being light skinned and all this other stuff. And I have to, like, every time we get done joking around, I'm like, damn, if people read our conversations on this, they'd be like, holy shit, man, wow, like, this is intense. Like, why are they like, dude, damn, they really must this thing really must be a thing. Like, there's dark lights versus darks, and then when they actually look at us, it's like, well, he's not even that dark, and he's really not even that light. So it's like, what are they even talking about? Like, people will be, I swear, Caucasian people will probably be mad confused, when they see the jokes go back and forth between, the lights versus darks. And I think it's something that, I've always wrestled with, because at the end of the day, I'm just like, where does this get any of us besides sitting at the end of the ladder, where none of us really want to be anyway,
Yeah, no, exactly. They probably definitely, and again, we're not saying it to say we should be worried about
Correct.
the optics to other quote unquote races, because we're not
Right.
we shouldn't be concerned about that to begin with. You know what I'm saying? But
Yes,
we should be concerned about how it looks to us when you base it all down. Like, really, that's what we. That's maybe that's why there's so much black on black crime. You know what I'm saying? Because we want to be concerned about arbitrary shit like this that has really no tangible fucking effect in our life. So
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just,
that's definitely,
it's weird for me. I mean, it's nuts, because it's just like, there's just this like light skinned people like will fight so hard to be black, right? To embody the dark skinned, right, characteristics. Because I know people that are just like, that go so hard, right, just to prove. I mean, and even in my in frat life, right, in the D9 association, which is which is sort of the embodiment of African American fraternities and sororities, that were constructed, about 100 or so years ago. There's even a battle there between lights versus darks. But then when you look at the founders for a lot of these different associations and these different organizations, a lot of them are light skinned. But then when they pledge, it's like, there's so much. It's like, oh, he light skinned, he ain't ever gonna make it. But I'm like, I'm like, but weren't the founders light? Like, it's like, God bless me, but it's just, it's like, Lord, like, why, where and what does this, like, there have been light skinned people that have done way more for, I feel like, for those that are in the inner city or the African American community, for the sake of just trying to sort of describe, than people that are of a darker hue, so to speak. So it's like, when does the battle, where is the need for the battle, right? I feel like at the end of the day, like, just why are we focusing on shit? Like, and I think that even the point behind this thing was talking about how, I know when I grew up, it was you sound white, or you sound like this, it's like, yo, like what the fuck? Or you talk like a light skin, or you talk like you're dark skin. Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Yeah. No, honestly, Mike. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, to wrap it up about the light skin, dark skin. A lot of them, they act like that to overcompensate, and you also see that with a lot of mulattoes. They try
either one way or the other
to be down and stuff like that. And then you'll see them leading coalitions and stuff like that. Like look at look at this nigga.
Absolutely.
Come on, man. We don't even know what he really is, but this dude out here trying to lead a coalition, not speaking not damn one word, but he's leading the coalition and shit. So you see stuff like that. And obviously I have an interracial, quote unquote racial baby on the way, and I'm going to speak to him or her and let them know, like, nah, man, you don't have to validate yourself. You validate yourself through yourself by auditing yourself regularly. And that's how you get validation. That's it. You don't get it externally. Unless you need a degree or something like that, and you need from an accredited degree, that's different. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to how you're moving in your life, no, you validate your motherfucking self. But but when people say, "Oh, like, yeah, you sound white," Mike, man, when I moved out here from Brooklyn, and I didn't want to move out here. I was like, Jersey. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? hell no, I want to go to Jersey. Like, nah, man. Like, I didn't want to do that. But we moved out here nonetheless, obviously. And I'll never forget when I was, going to school. It was different, because I honestly, like, I didn't want to be friends
Right.
with these people. I thought they was all like whack. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all
Yeah.
from Jersey. It's just a mind. It's a city thing. It's just a city thing. You come in and it's like, what the fuck? Like nothing. Like, yeah, none of y'all got nothing on me.
Right.
Y'all talking like y'all tough. Y'all ain't tough.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all ain't nothing. You know what I'm saying? So, and then to get to high school, because that's when I, like, right before freshman year is when I started to, like, hang out with different people, because prior to that I was just hanging out with, family and people that lived on my block, but I lived
Correct.
around.
Yeah.
It was very multicultural where I lived. But obviously, whenever you live in an area like we do and it's multicultural, it's going to be predominantly quote unquote black. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's still multicultural, but that's the predominant that. So anyway, I would hang out with like people like that. But then, like, right before high school, I started, hanging out with people that I would speak to. I would speak to people in school, but not hang out with them. We would just talk in school. But then it turned into like, oh, like, let's hang out. Oh, you play this game? I play this game too. Oh, let's play. I'm gonna have a party. We're all gonna bring our Xboxes or whatever, and we're all gonna play. I was like, oh shit, like I never even heard of that. Like, that sounds what's up. All right, stuff like that. So I started making friends in different groups. Like and even to this day, I have friends that if I were to take all my friends and put them together, you'd be like, how the hell? Like, what is the common link between all these fucking people? And it's me. It's me, because I don't box myself into any particular group, and I never have. So, for instance, when freshman year rolled around, and I was like, I want to, like, I was over the baggy clothes and shit like that, and I was like, I want to wear Abercrombie,
yeah, we went through that phase,
and Aeropostale. You know how people used to try to
yeah.
I was the first one to do it. Yo, you know how much shit I used to have to hear from people trying to talk shit. I'm like, yo, none of y'all niggas is hard. And then for all that to be the case for senior year roll around.
Yeah, I had my Pumas and all that, man.
All this shit.
I had my Italian Pumas, man. I couldn't tell nobody nothing, man. Oh,
remember at that time it was called the preppy look? Yeah.
Woo.
I had my cargo shorts. I had my polos, my Aeropostale, Abercrombie, all of it, bro, all of it. And people, I never forget. You said, I mean, I guess you can call it picking on, but I think it's a mindset. People don't pick on me because that's my mindset. I'm not a victim. But if I was a victim, then I probably would be sitting here bitching like, yeah, I was picked on in high school. I wasn't picked on. Because first of all, that was my mindset. And second of all, if anybody wanted, they could have got it. You know what I'm saying? That's simple. And then not for nothing, like I said, by the end of high school, everyone was wearing it anyway.
I appreciate like that. Everything you just said there, I think that is like the embodiment sort of like a growing up in the suburbs type of, when you have like a hardened mentality based upon your upbringing and things like that, but then you're like sort of placed into the suburban jungle, so to speak. Right. And I think that's something that, and I completely connect with everything that you're saying. Right. And I think even when we got to high school, like I saw like how you changed, like you weren't wearing the Jordans and things like that. I mean, if you were, you obviously were mixing it with like Hollister and like American Eagle and all that. And I remember like, going like, because obviously, we, as we became, friends, and I'll never forget, it was 7th grade, in that science class, and I mean, not to say this, but, I was like, at first when we met, they were like, oh yeah, that's Aaron, he stayed back, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember when I looked, I mean, it's not that you weren't smart, it's just that you just didn't give a fuck, so it's like, and the ones, because I initially I was like, when you think of, again, we've spoken about this in other podcast episodes about, the distinction between, the Africans and African Americans and all that, so initially I'm like, oh man, this guy is probably just a clown. He probably doesn't take shit serious, blah, blah. He probably can't, I probably wouldn't be able to talk to him much, you know what I mean? Like, but then when we first got into that class, and then we were just able to just go back and forth, like just so easily. Right. And it just completely changed my notion on sort of because obviously again you're wearing the Michael Vick jersey, you know, you're wearing the Jordans and all that, and you weren't going down that route of like, oh, I want to sell drugs and I want to be this like, you know, this wankster, you know, this sort of embody that sort of energy. So when I saw that, I was like, oh snap. I was like, there's people that can dress like that, but not essentially, you know, want to be, you know, pieces of shit and do all of like the ratchet ass shit, you know what I mean, so to speak. So when I look at it, when we morphed, right, we went to high school and then we started changing because the baggy thing really wasn't for me now. Like even now, like I would say my sort of my dress is like a sort of like an urban-esque, you know, with a mix of like would try to attribute some type of like a fashionist type of or like mode to it, right? So, but I'm not even the type that I've never really been into the whole wearing 4XL, you know, C's or like wearing baggy ass pants that run down to my kneecaps and, you know, and wearing, if I wear Jordans, you know, and having them set the pant legs, you know, hovering over my Jordans and shit, you know, like I've never been, you know, that type of guy, you know. And so when we started changing that, right, and we were the more popular people in our high schools, you know, so I could say that, you know, easily, because we didn't section ourselves into a bucket, right? We didn't go like, oh yeah, we can only hang out with, you know, the let's say it like this, we can't hang out with the Negroes, right, or the dudes that are doing hood rat shit, right?
No, but there was a lot of, you know, just for the listeners out there, like everything we're saying is true, but don't get it twisted. Like Mike and I are far and few between. Right. It was just Mike and I, for the most part, that was doing that. You know, a lot of the other quote unquote blacks weren't doing that. They were just congregating within themselves and each other. Nope. They wouldn't go to a party that Mike and I would go to, you know, and so it was just right. And that helped our popularity. Not like we were seeking it, but it led to that because we were so evenly dispersed throughout.
And I can honestly say this, like clicks. When I if you like, I got messaged the other day, you know, and this is a shout out to him, by Alex Perricone. You know what I'm saying? If you remember Alex Perricone, you know, and I'm going to bring this up just, you know, simply because it's something that, you know, blew my mind as to like, you really won't know and, you know, what people remember about you until they tell you about yourself. Right. And he sent me this long, you know, beautiful text about like how I was, you know, how funny I was and like, you know, and how I used to, and all the different memories he had with me as we grew up in elementary school and all this other stuff. And if you looked at Alex, you would, and you looked at me, you would be like, y'all two were talked. Yeah, like you guys were, you know, were acquaintances or whatever. And like I think that's the beauty of like being able to say like we did not. I'm not gonna say we didn't give a fuck about like what the person was, but like, essentially that's what it was. Like I just didn't want to be a prototypical, you know, just athlete, right? I didn't want to be the prototypical dude that just did everything that society says that I was supposed to hang out with, did everything that I was supposed to do. Like I wanted to hang out with all different walks of life. And honestly, to be real, I mean, if you know, if there was a school shooting, the last thing I want is for somebody to be looking at me under that desk and going, you'd be like, yo, that's Big Mike? Oh, nah, you gotta go. Like, nah, I want, like, my dream would be like to, like, they look under that desk and go, oh, Big Mike. No, you get out, bro. Like, you good, man. You good. You good, man. You good with me. You good with me, man. You good with me, man. I'll see you later. Yeah, that probably sounds extremely terrible, but I'm being so like that could be the difference, bro. And it's not to say it's in that vanity sort of way, but like people don't think about that shit, right? Like they just walk around life, and you don't know the kind of impact that someone that would be with our popularity will have on somebody that, you know, who may not speak to that many people, you know, where you could just, you know, you walk up to them and say, yo, what's good with you, man? Like, what are you up to? Like, what are you working on? What are some things that you're interested in? That could mean the difference between somebody going berserk and thinking that they don't exist in this world, and the difference between them saying, you know what, nobody gives a fuck about me. You know what I'm saying?
Facts. I've definitely seen a lot of kids in high school that I could definitely see how they could go just unnoticed and feel like no one gives a fuck about them. You know,
Absolutely.
I could definitely see because I've seen it. A lot of kids that you just see around, and then you get a class with them, and then they just still like
Yo, and that used
ain't
to
talking to
bother me.
nobody.
They
It's like,
used to
damn,
really like. I used to,
you know
and
what I'm
I'm
saying?
not
Like,
even, obviously I'm joking with the whole school shooting thing, but it's to a certain degree, right? But at the same time, but when I looked at shit like that, I'd be like, damn, man, like nobody deserves to walk, because high school's tough enough as itself, you know, to figure out, try to figure out who you are, and obviously you got class and all this other stuff and what you want to do with the rest of your life. But it's also tough as shit when you don't really, when the people that you're with, are it's you're just kind of sexually and secluded, right? And you're just kind of stuck in that group. So I feel like when people
mm-hmm.
would come at us and be like, "Oh, you guys are the whitest guys, and or whitest black guys I've ever seen," and all that, I used to just laugh and be
Oh
like,
my
"Well, you
god,
know what? When we go to this party,
yeah,
and when we go to this party in this mansion, right? And you're wondering, you're asking all, and you see all our pictures on
yeah,
MySpace, and all the girls that we're pulling." And then you guys are, but that's what
yeah,
would happen. All these guys that would
yeah,
clown on us, they'd be the first ones to be like, "Oh, yo,
yeah,
what are y'all doing this weekend? Where y'all going to
yeah,
now?" You know what I'm saying? Like as if it was some fucking
yeah,
rodeo show that they were
exactly,
trying to stick on to.
yeah,
So I just think it's funny how people move, man.
nah. Nah, yo, that's yo, bro. Every time you say that, just like it's like scratches back in my mind with the whole like, oh, like you're not black.
Oh,
Like, how the hell do you gauge blackness?
right.
Now, obviously, we were kids, so these were kids saying this. So obviously, I'm sure that if we were to speak to most of them, maybe not most, maybe I'm giving way too much credit, but if we were to speak to them, I'm sure there's a demographic or a population of them that would have grown up and would change their mind. And I'm sure that there might be others still that would be like, yeah, nah, man,
Right.
yeah, like you an Oreo or whatever, like how the hell do you gauge blackness? We just spent an hour talking about what the hell black is and where it came from and colored and Negro, and how do you judge, like, how the hell does one former slave say to another
Ugh.
former slave, oh, you're not a real colored, you're not a real slave? Like, what kind
Lord have
of
mercy.
backwards silly ass shit is that, just to begin with? And then for the real hood niggas, that's like, no, but that's not what we mean. No, I know what y'all mean. I know what, you know what I'm saying. I know,
Right.
I fully know what you mean, but you have to understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying to you is, you cannot quantify or gauge blackness. If you want to say someone is an Uncle Tom, 9 times out of 10, you're their Uncle Tom. And I say that because you're 9 times out of 10, you're probably the one condoning
Mm.
niggas in the street shooting each other.
Yeah.
You're the one that's condoning that no snitching mentality that is, tearing down our fucking our quote unquote communities. You're the one
Ooh.
that probably got 2 baby mamas, and you probably had at least 2 or 3 aborted. And
Tell
so,
him.
yeah, who's the real Uncle Tom? Who's the real coon? I think
Mm-hmm.
you might be the real coon. You know what I'm saying? So, and that has nothing to do with blackness. That all comes with responsibility, accountability, and how you move. For instance, when people say, Mike, and I know you hear this all the time, oh, well, if there's no such thing as a good cop, because if a good cop doesn't say anything when the bad cop does stuff, then they're bad too. And I get that mentality. But you know what? Keep that same energy and that same line of thought when I say to you, well, then if you live in a neighborhood where
Ooh.
you know who's terrorizing it, you know who's robbing and shooting it, and you subscribe to that no snitch mantra, then okay then. So then you can't say
Okay.
to the cops, right?
I like
Because you're
that.
doing the same
I
thing.
like that. And I think that, I mean, because we want to round up with this topic, I mean, this portion of the topic, because this is essentially where I feel like it all comes back into all the things we've mentioned, sort of. And I think, Aaron, you alluded to this. It all comes back into this notion of blackness, right? And all of that it presumes, right? And at the same token, being what it is to even be black is such a broad spectrum, right? So to even to segue into to denigrate someone and put them in a cast and chastise them from being in that quote unquote bucket as if it's something to aspire to is just so fucking problematic to me, and the fact that it's like, because I choose not to to sag my pants, or I choose not to talk in a certain way. Like, for me, my mother made me read the dictionary when I was in first grade. Like, she made me read Webster's dictionary front to back when I was in first grade. So yes, do I talk and utilize a lot of big words? And and I think one of our listeners even brought it up, because they saw that I utilize a lot of big words in my jargon. Well, sorry, like that's, and some people would connect that to say, oh, that I talk white. Well, I'm sorry that my mother didn't want me walking around speaking like it's yo MTV Raps. Like there's a reason why I can work in the field that I work in the financial industry, and when I'm on the phone with people, they're like, wow, I didn't expect you to look how you sound. You know what I'm saying? Like there'll be people that are like, I just thought you were a typical athlete. But then when they hear me, break down all of these different, infrastructure sort of controls and rules, they're like, oh, snap. Like, well, what the heck? Like, whoa, because again, all of these then preconceived notions about, about someone and how they look and how they act and walk, it just lends you to get your fucking mind blown. So for me, I'd rather take advantage of that shit. It's like, all right, well, if you're just gonna put me in that black bucket, and then I talk and move and walk with a certain airiness about me, then if you want to connect that to being said white, then I'm sorry for you. I feel sorry for you. That you relegate life to me aspiring to be something that, as Aaron has so eloquently mentioned, is not even, doesn't exist. Right. So if you want to live in that fantasy world where everything is about said, those dichotomies, then that's perfectly fine. And you go ahead and do that. But when I talk and move, I don't think about, how best can I sound like a Johnny today? Or how best can I sound like a Timmy today? Like, when I move and walk, like, no, I'm simply trying to show that where I came from, the people that raised me and brought me up, essentially wanted me to be as educated and as affluent as possible, and obviously not just use big words for the sake of using them. Use them in context where it actually makes sense. Not like some people, like where like Dr. Eric Michael Dyson will just throw an affinity of fucking big words out there to the point where it's just like, I don't even know if many of his masses even know where the fuck he's going with half of the shit he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? And I do connect with him on a lot of different points and things. But at one point that Candace Owens mentioned, kind of ran him through the mud when she literally was like, it's like, you're just saying a lot of big words, and it's like, but they have no meaning. And I'm like, damn, dude, like, just take it easy. Like you know what I mean? So I think it's like we just need to be careful about sectioning and putting people in a box, an unnecessary box, simply just because they want to elevate themselves. And that goes back to this whole crab in the barrel aspect. It's like Lord, like, punish me for wanting to sound like I actually was raised well, and I actually was taught to be better than, to aspire to be better than oneself. Like, it's just the mentality of these communities is just something that, is why I'm so proud of my community, because it's just those conversations don't happen. Like, you don't see people. If they're saying like, oh, you're acting so white, it's not because it's something positive. Like, it's because you're doing something that's probably, some bitch assness, right? If you're complaining, if you're, talking about why do you always have to make fun of me? Like, anytime my little sisters complained or started acting like, like their feelings were getting hurt, the first thing my mom was talking about was like, oh, since when did you become a Samantha today? So when did you become what, I didn't know I had some Janets in here, like a pure Janet. I know I named you Janet, but I didn't name you that to be on the Brady Bunch. Like, what the heck did you think this was? Like, you better suck that shit up. So it's kind of funny to me how, like, and the people in these communities will utilize that in such a way to bring up white people, right? And I'm not saying that I have a problem with white people, but we didn't, in the Nigerian community, we don't use them in a way to say like, oh, they're better than us, and we're trying to aspire to be a part of something that's better than who we are.
But that's so crazy, and I'm glad you brought this up, because we're supposed to be ending, but that's part of the problem.
I know.
When these people, when we allow ourselves to go by the black and white, then that's why you're concerned about white. That's why they are. Yep. And then when you look at the colony of Liberia and the Ivory Coast, which were colonies set up
Mm-hmm.
post-slavery, and we sent people or slaves from here over there to
Mm-hmm.
be free and have their own land. Like America did do that, you know. You got to give them some credit, right? So they did it.
I
But
can't.
what happened was, for anyone that knows this, and that African woman, that Liberian woman from that African party that you took me to, Mike, she spoke out vehemently about this, saying that those Africans from America, so rightfully, I guess you can call them African Americans, they
Mm-hmm.
had that same mentality that you're talking about right now, and they pretty much brought it over there and started saying, "Oh, well,
Right.
no, you're better than this person because of this," and all these arbitrary things. It's
Right. Because I know
yes,
English.
yes, or this is how we
Yep.
speak, or we spoke it over there, and now we're over here, we're the ruling
Mm-hmm.
class. And if you don't speak it like this, and if you are a tribes person and you don't believe in the Jesus Christ of the Bible, and you believe in
Mm-hmm.
your African folklore or your African religion, that all these different things are used to like just build and grow dissension between people that already had
Yep.
enough differences as it was. But then again, that goes back to my
Absolutely.
point why I'm against Pan Africanism, which is just because you're black doesn't mean that we're all the same. And that's another reason why I don't like that moniker. You know,
Mm.
go to Africa. There's thousands and thousands of tribes, Mike. There's hundreds of tribes, if not thousands, in Nigeria alone.
Oh
That
yeah.
these people will not be like, oh, okay, yes, you are a statesman, I guess, but you're not evil. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
we draw these distinctions, and we can call
Right.
those what they are. Maybe some of those might be arbitrary. I don't fucking know. I don't know, but those things do exist. So to say that we're all the same because we all have the same color is to say like every Caucasian is fucking French, and that's not the
Mm.
case. There's Italian Caucasians,
Right.
there's Hungarian Caucasians. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
why the hell did they think, and not even just we think that we can just call each other black?
Mm.
Yeah.
Boom.
So anyway, we got to wrap this motherfucker up. But I love this episode. This is probably one of our best episodes to date.
Oh yeah.
Please like, follow, and
Yeah.
subscribe. We have the IG out, M.A.S Media. We have the YouTube page, which is you can click the link on the IG to find it because I still have trouble finding it when I try to search in YouTube. So don't try to do that. Just follow us on IG first, then click the link. It'll take you to the YouTube page. Obviously, you can get all of our stuff on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can Google us for the most part, and it'll pop up. Spread the word, tell your friends. Please, much love, much luck to everyone in this new year. And that's me signing out.
All right. All right. This is Big Mike signing out as well. Just so y'all know, Aaron made a great point about the YouTube page. Just want to stick this out there. Yes, it is hard to find this because there are some other mass media platforms on YouTube. So just make sure means you have to get our IG and our Facebooks because the links will be there for the YouTube page for your use and for your pleasure. So that way you guys can go right to it. So please, by all means, follow our social media platforms and get our YouTube page where we're looking to get up to 50 subscribers right now. This is our first goal of 2021, and we want to set it. So if we can get that going within this first month or two, that'd be awesome. And
Are you sure about that?